next up we have Claire and Andrew Brewer from Cornwall in southwest England. They're milking 500 cows on an autumn calving herd, and there's so much more to their story. I just let them have it at themselves, okay? Take it away.
Good afternoon, we're Claire and Andrew Brewer. We're here to talk to you about our role in the farm and farming and working together, and also living together, which isn't always easy, trying to combine it all. So I'm going to talk a bit first about our individual histories, where we were when we got married, and a very small bit about the farm, but this is not mainly about the farm, it's to show how we've got there. As I look here, there may be 1 in 10 ladies in the room. It's the only place you go that you're not queuing for the ladies and the break. And it's lovely to see the men queuing, but gentlemen, please encourage your wives, partners, girlfriends to come, to socialise, to meet other ladies in agriculture. The Positive Farmers Course conference is for all, okay? So basically, I grew up on a very small family farm. I've got 2 brothers, 2 sisters. We grew up in a very small 3-bedroomed house. You can imagine the fights and everything carrying on as a child. I had 1 sister who should have actually taken over the family farm. But obviously, traditionally, it goes to the oldest boy. I worked in the bank straight from school. I left school at 16. From there, I worked my way up to managing the bank. I was at the end of my career in the bank. I was managing 150 staff, over 6 branches, that sort of thing. I'd been in the agriculture sector. I was a very active member in the Young Farmers, and that's where Andrew and I met. I was adamant I was never going to go farming. So one of my earliest memories is I'm sat on a little stool in my granny's kitchen, and she's telling me while she's baking, and I can't have been more than 4 or 5, whatever you do not go into farming. My siblings laugh themselves silly now because I was the one who was definitely never going to be a farmer. So Andrew, he grew up in mid-Cornwall. He's always been passionate about farming. He grew up in a house where he lived with his grandparents, his mother and father, and his unmarried uncle. Over the years, by the time I came along, there was only his mum and uncle. Unfortunately, Andrew's dad had a very long illness, and he died when Andrew was 14. So when I came along, Andrew was working in partnership with his mum and his uncle. His brother is 10 years older than Andrew, and he'd left the family farm due to several issues over the years. So when I came along, that was just it. So Andrew also left school at 16. He went to college for 12 months, agricultural college, and he was due to go back, and the next door farm came up. And the deal was, you either come back and work full-time now, or you return to college. They were a very progressive family. In every time that there was purchase to be done, things were going to change. They had a family vote, and Andrew, at the young age of 14, 15, 16, always had an equal vote to the adults in the family. So we got married in 1997. Earlier that year, Andrew's uncle died intestate. He had an appointment to write the will on Monday morning, and he died on Sunday evening. This caused us a huge amount of issues. As you can imagine, the cousins, the brother, all came with their hand out. More about that in a minute. So then we had our girls, and our girls are Rebecca, who was born in 98, and Emily, who was born in the year 2000. Extremely proud of our girls. They work very hard. They've always been a part of the discussion within our business. So with the girls coming along, I had a choice. And we discussed it as a family. I could either come back to the farm and work full-time, I could go back to the bank full-time, and I could use the money that I earned at the bank, less taxes, to pay somebody else on the farm to work full-time. It was a no-brainer. I didn't want somebody else bringing up my children. If I went back to the bank part-time, there wasn't going to be enough money there. Things were very tight because we were paying solicitors, accountants, everybody to fight for the farm. So I came back to the farm full-time. The other thing that I did was when we got married, I bought into the business. I used my life savings and I bought in to the family business. So in 1997, we were a mixed farm. We had 60 cows. We had sheep, we had arable, we had beef, and there was a huge potential to the farm. Suddenly, we had a huge debt that we were going to have to pay off at some point in the future. We had the family fighting who wanted a bit of everything. So we had to get our heads down and get ourselves sorted out. And while it was being settled, we had to just assume that we were going to end up buying the farm from everybody. And so we looked at lots of options, and Andrew came across to Ireland in 1999, just after Bex was 3 or 4 months old. So we topped out at just over 700 cows once a day. We were buying cows in the in 2001. We ended up with a huge disease that we've talked about here before called mycoplasma, and that nearly ruined us. We managed to get through that, and then we've had lots of good times and bad times. Andrew's done the Nuffield Scholarship, he's done Mike Murphy's tour. We built a wind turbine in 2012. We couldn't have done that without the fact that we were milking once a day and the time for Andrew. In 2014, everything was going great guns. We were doing really well, we were on the up, life was rosy. And then all the cows and heifers, as far as we could, were in calve. We had 170 heifers due to calve. At the time we were also, due to go to the bull. They went to the bull, everything appeared to be in calve, and then they started bulling again 2 months later. Eventually we found out we had Smallenberg, and we ended up with 90% of the heifers empty. So we were spring calving at the time. So what we decided to do was, we'll put them back in calve, and then we'll sell them as autumn calvers. Disaster struck in September. We'd been clear from TB, and then we got TB hugely, and we lost over 150 head of animals on one TB test from being clear in the March. So we are now pretty much all autumn calving. We've put up sheds. We looked at a joint venture, and both parties decided that that wasn't going to work. And so that's some of the history of the farm, the ups and the downs. Now, gentlemen, please do not, as a personal thing, moving into another lady's house. That is one of the worst things to do. And I came from a farming background, so I expected it. If you don't come from a farming background, you move into another lady's house, they move out, you get left with all the junk from all the generations that they don't want you to throw out either. And you have to tread that minefield as well as them, not knocking or anything when they come in, they just walk in because it's their home. So, you know, so this is us. We've been married 25 years now. I'm now going to pass on to Andrew, and he's going to say a little bit more about the farm now.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute honour to be able to present today. I always think that it's a massive honour, but I've been sat here for nearly 2 days, and then I've been listening to yesterday to Matt. I'm like, oh, he said what I was going to say. Mike, this morning, he's saying what I was going to say. Okay, and then there's Joe earlier on. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? Okay, in Mike Murphy's words, it'd be golly golly, or words to that effect in my head. What am I going to say? But actually, I said, no, let's go with what I've prepared, and we'll go for some positive reinforcement. Okay, so anyway, I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing now. Okay, so the turbine has been a good earner for us, and we've actually bought quite a lot of land. We made a decision after we did wealth creation, I'll come on to, that we would only buy land next door. So we've got a really good platform now, and support block close at hand. Due to disease issues, TB ongoing and whatever, we've probably moved on a little bit. And we've gone from farming for maximisation to now we actually probably farm for optimisation. Okay? So we're actually milking less cows. Due to the Smallenberg, we've actually ended up calving these heifers that Claire mentioned. We calved them in sort of late July and August. And I'm like, it's quite nice calving cows in shorts rather than leggings and waterproof and whatever. So, and actually now, so we look at grass in a little bit different way. That actually now our outwintering's in the middle of June and July on long-standing hay and stuff. So it's just keeping the real principles of simple farm systems, and grass at the heart of our farming system is still there today, although we calve in a different place, okay? So yeah, TB, selling calves is really difficult. And then we were selling calves to a guy, TB restricted. We got caught. He didn't pay us until after he killed them all. We're like, well, actually, no, that's not really fair. And then Orla, our milk buyers, they've actually brought in a system for it, like every calf has a value, okay? So we've ended up keeping and finishing all our beef numbers. We've cut the cow numbers down, really focused on keeping better cows, culling out the crap at the bottom. You know, if we've built production up from them, you know, naturally they're milking better, calving through the autumn, they seem to be. Our calves are doing really well. We're actually making decent money out of beef. We were told by Arla, you know, small statured cows, you know, we've got a lot of Jersey cows, like you've seen in the opening slide, you know, we've got a united nation of cows. They said, you cannot make money out of small statured cows' offspring. So we're like, actually, I'll prove you wrong. I don't like being beaten. So we've ended up rearing them, managing them with exactly the same precision that we try to graze our cows. Okay, quality grass. Get as much quality grass into these animals as possible. Okay, so with the TB, we bought some more land. The opportunity came up. We bought another farm. We said for a long time it was a vanity project because it was next door. The gate was even there. We didn't even have to knock a hole in the hedge. We ended up buying that 3 years ago. But that's meant that we've actually flexed. And with the TB ongoing, like in the last 12 months, we've lost over 50 cows again. We have to flex. So it's actually, how do we keep flexibility into our business? So actually, there's a lot of vegetables growing in Cornwall. You know, they grow a lot of daffodils down with us. Like 90% of all daffodils grown in Europe are grown in Cornwall. But a lot of vegetables as well, particularly cauliflowers, calabrese, that sort of thing. So we partner with the growers. We have a flexible agreement where we can graze in the spring. We usually take 2 cuts of silage, and then we actually let them have it in early June. They put a crop of Savoy cabbages in, and then we'll have that back the following February sort of time, which then there's usually a tremendous amount of residue left. You can see the middle picture there. They're leaving behind around 6 to 8 tons of dry matter per hectare. We had 9 weeks of feed for all our young stock and beef cattle this spring. Just making use of that flexibility. And then we're utilising, getting 2 really good cuts of soil, really good quality silage ready for our autumn calvers right through the thing. So there we go, Joe. There's our mixed swords. Bit of a mixture. So we do a lot of things on that. Why do we grow a lot of mixed swords, mixed species? We do a lot of research trials. There's some quite big tax benefits for doing that. We were using technology like on collars, but that's allowed us to do several different research things, monitoring rumination differences between mixed species and all grass silverworts, all that sort of thing. Probably the biggest thing out of the research thing is to keep me away from the farm and let the guys on the farm. So I'll be there tinkering and doing things and just annoying them. So it was just about clarity. So yeah, I'll pass you over to our people now from Claire.
So people are very important to us. As a couple, we have always operated an open house. So we have had Mike Murphy and his family to stay. We have had Con Hurley, we have had consultants, we have had random people turn up at the doorstep and go, my brother so-and-so used to work for you for a month or two from New Zealand. Is it okay if we come and stay for a couple of days? And that might turn up to a month or 2 months or whatever. So we've always operated an open house. I'd like to think that most people enjoy coming to us. If you don't like me being untidy, you don't have to come back again. We do school visits. So we've been part of a Kingfisher Trust, which is specific to our area. And within a week, we have over 400 children to the school, to the farm, sorry. And we have a group of volunteers for the week. And we look at agriculture, working with nature, and then they do a project afterwards. We also have other school visits through the year. We have farm walks. If we're asked for farm walks, we always say yes, within reason. Obviously, if we're not there, we can't. Andrew is on the board of ALA, so he's very involved in that. So that takes him, on average, 2 or 3 days a week. I actually quite enjoy when he's away, because we're living together and working together the whole time. It gives me a bit of a, me time. I volunteer for Home Start, and I am a point of contact for a young family, so they have to have children under the age of 5, and I go and work with them for whatever issues they have. Sometimes they might be involved in social services, sometimes the parent might be disabled or the child might have difficulties, or they might be suffering from depression and just need some support. So I do that for 2 or 3 hours a week. Also, since June, we've had a Ukrainian family living with us. That's been a real eye-opener. So we've got mum and 2 children. Our girls have moved out from home. So we were rattling around in a big house, and we said, well, we've got room, we can help. So we're actively involved in that. And then the most important thing is our team. Now, this picture is of Ant, who is our herdsman who came to join us 2 years ago. He's the best herdsman in the world, and none of you are allowed to pinch him. Wish he'd come to us 20 years ago. Now, you look at that picture and you see how excited those children are that come to the farm. If we can get the farmers from the UK and Ireland that excited about grass and poo, can you imagine how much better we would all be? Anyway, going to the team, we've got our staff. Without our wonderful staff, we couldn't do what we do. Over the years, we've had several. We've got a very strong team at the moment. We could let them make all the decisions themselves, but we can't quite hand over the reins, can you, Andrew? And so they might have a plan, and we should be able to just let them do it. But then Andrew's also got a plan that's different. And then the plan might change. So actually, sometimes we're not really giving them the best service. And we are trying, but it's very hard when you've been hands-on. So the family, we've got Bex and Emily. So Bex and Emily have been involved with discussions. Doesn't matter who comes to visit the farm, didn't matter how old they were involved in the discussion. I can remember one day somebody coming and we asked them what colour wine they wanted, and they said white. Emily turned around to them when she was 4 and went, "If you're having beef, you should be having red wine." So they've always come to bank managers' appointments, to accountants' appointments from the age of about 8 and 10. We've always spoken to them at an age-appropriate level. When things have been going badly on the farm, we try and protect them when they were younger as much as possible. During the last year, we've made huge strides and we've done our full succession plan, and they are now fully integrated into the business as well, although they don't work in the business. The vets, they're part of our team. We do preventative as well as necessary emergencies with them. Our bank manager, we produce monthly figures for them and keep them involved at least quarterly with what's going on. Our accountants, we work closely with the accountants. Without them, we couldn't save tax, and none of us want to pay tax. Consultants and mentors. Ron Caswell was our consultant from 1998. He used to referee. He was very, very much involved in the people. Secondary was the business. He'd always make sure, and after we'd had a meeting, especially if it was a heated meeting between us, which, you'd think that never happened, but it does. He would always phone me first to see how I was, and then he would phone Andrew. So the solicitors, we use a lot of solicitors. We don't keep to one solicitor. We use the best solicitor for the job at the time. We have our favoured solicitors for certain things. So that's the people. So financial discipline. Now, because I came from a banking background, I knew what the bank wanted. But not only with the financial discipline, you have to make sure it's no good having a cash flow at the beginning of the year saying, there you go, that's done for the bank. The cash flow is not done for the bank, it's done for you. So my cash flow, or our cash flow, we sit down together and we produce the cash flow. Within that cash flow, there will be some priorities of things that we want to do. Some of those we won't be able to afford to do, but the line remains on the cash flow for the next year. And we revisit whether that is still a priority or not, or has something changed. It's a working document. When the electric prices changed, the whole cash flow got changed. I've still got my original where we started, but I need to know that I can afford to pay my electric bill, my fertilizer bill down the line, and I don't need an overdraft last minute. We always know what our net worth statement is. That's updated once every half year. Keep a record of loans, where we are, what interest rates they are, especially at the moment with interest rates going up every month. And we always have a list of things that are going on. We always prepare. If you don't prepare, you can fail very easily. And without a list, nothing gets achieved. With a list, you will achieve far more than you ever imagined you could. Over to Andrew for the next.
Okay, so we were lucky enough in strategic planning. Okay, I can remember when I was 17, when we bought the farm next door and I didn't go back to college, I actually wrote a plan out of what I wanted to achieve then. I've still got it at home. Is it the same as today? No, it's not, but actually the numbers aren't that far out. But we were very fortunate. We were growing our business really rapidly, okay, and members of discussion group and really driving to do the best we could. And thankfully, we had the opportunity to take part in the wealth creation course, okay. Mike said earlier that it's really important that people or couples do it together. And I don't disagree with that at all, but for us, it was really important that we did it separately, and it did it, as long as we've both done it, it didn't really matter, because it actually gave Claire the opportunity to be herself again, not my wife, not somebody else. She was Claire on her own, and also, so that's driven us, and And both of us actually individually came to the conclusion, the key thing from the wealth creation for us, and the key question that came up was actually making us quantify how much is enough. Okay? And that's perhaps when we started thinking away, slightly differently, and we drew up strategic plans, and we still grow up strategic plans. And what we've implemented on that is actually at least once a year, usually maybe twice, we actually go away for a couple nights. Okay, we live in southwest Cornwall next to the beach, and we've been as close to home as like 5 miles away, but the staff and nobody else knew where we were. And we go away for those two nights, and we actually, we have breakfast in the morning, and we spend that time in the morning after breakfast, sitting down, working through our plan, right through, talk about it, and get it going. Say, yeah, okay. And then we'll go for a walk on the beach, or we'll go for a long on the coast path. We've got natural assets on our doorstep, so we can go along and see some views, relax, chat about it, bounce it around a little idea or two. Then we have a nice dinner, in the evening, sleep on it, and then by this next morning, breakfast, you're very much a believer, if you sleep on something, it'll become clear by the morning, and by the second morning, we'll try and clarify that view going forward, okay? And that'll be a 12-month plan, a 3-year, 5-year, and 10-year plan if we can.
But that's all written down.
Yeah. The problem with 5-year plans is we sort of seem to achieve them by about year 3. But, so it's a bit of a problem. So life is about balance, really. Do we balance each other? Yeah, we probably do. We've got lots of different strengths, and we do. And if we're getting out of kilter, we've both had some quite serious health issues over the years. The other one will just jump up and put a bit more weight on to get things to balance again. And we keep ourselves in that way, really. We always say that I was listening to Matt yesterday, and and it's just the energy and the time he's putting into things. It's just really refreshing. And I'm like, I could feel someone looking at me saying, "Okay, yeah, I've been there." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay." So. I always say there's an equation to reach your goal is money, time, and energy. And when you're in your 20s, you've got piles of energy and probably not enough money, and you've got time to work on it. And as you get older, and as we've got older, and we've probably got a bit more money behind us now, maybe not very much time, and like had a really close health scare and almost wouldn't hear, as we get older as well, our energy levels. So you're always balancing the equation to reach your goal. And for the younger people in the audience, just think, just maximise your time and your energy. Try and use somebody else's money to start, even if it's a bank or somebody else. Like Matthew said, he's rung up his business partners, and yeah, the money's there. But if you've got a really good track record, you'll get the money. Okay.
So working and living together. Now, we have different areas of responsibility. Have a cleaner for the house unless you love cleaning. Don't clean up before they come, because it's lovely to go into the house and you're not having a squabble over, you've both been out all day and the children have been taken along with you, and you come in and the house is a disaster zone. Have somebody to come and clean, do the ironing, do the change the beds. Don't think of it as an unnecessary expense. Without that, we'd have killed each other, okay? Because we were both working so hard on the business and bringing up our children. It's invaluable. And my time was better off doing the £100, £1,000 jobs than it was cleaning the house. I hate cleaning the house. I'm not good at cleaning the house. We have different areas of responsibility. I've always done all of the paperwork, with the exception of any of the projects that are pinging out of Andrew's head at any time. He'll write down some various things. So Andrew will have 10 different ideas a week, okay? So you have to manage that and manage the expectation. We always had one rule for the children. Even if I didn't agree with Andrew at the time he was telling them off, I backed him up. We might have words later.
Vice versa.
And vice versa. Whoever got in first started cooking the tea. We make sure the reps know that I hold the checkbook. Because reps will come into the yard and they will treat you like a bit of shit on their shoe because you are not the boss. Actually, I own half of this business. I work as hard as my husband. And if you want to sell anything on this farm, you've got to get past me first. So treat me with respect. Have separate interests. Go and do something so that you can talk about other things. And support each other in those interests. Be happy to travel or go out separately. But don't go to the pub every night and leave the family at home. They're your family too. They're your children too. Change the nappy. Support your wife, partner, girlfriend. Don't expect them to do everything in the house. Your parents might have done, but the new generation of women will not tolerate it and they will walk. What do we do when it's not going so well? Bit of screaming and shouting. Always a bit of that. Then walk away and let them do the job. Don't stand and fight. I like peace. Andrew has the quickest temper, but you upset me, I'm going to sulk. His temper's gone up there, come back down. Everything's hunky-dory. No, it's not. I'm still festering. Let me get over it. Try and leave it outside if you can. Don't involve the children in the fight. Try not to have raised voices around them. They will already know that there's a problem because they can sense it. So one of the workmen who'd worked for 3 generations of the family turned around to me one day and he said, "You have to be psychic to work for the Brewers." And I said, "I don't think I can ever do that." He said, "But if you don't, you're not going to make it, mate." So that was, So I have two things that I would do, especially in the early days. I would write out everything on the list that really affected me off about Andrew. What he'd done to annoy me. And I'd type it out when I was in the office, and I was really mad. And then what I would do was rip it up into little pieces, because I've let it go. I've moved on. And the other thing that I would do, if he really, I would turn my phone off and I would drive out. He had no idea when I was going and when I was coming back, but it gave me an hour or 2 where I could get my head together and we could come back and talk about it rationally again. Because if you stand and fight, it just gets worse and worse.
I've got good dogs. So I'll talk a little bit now about some of the things we've done. So cows-wise, we've got our 2 daughters. They're not batshit crazy farmer like I am. Bex could be an absolute natural farmer. When she was 4 years old, if I wanted to sort cattle, she's who I would take. I'm going to tell her where to stand. She can handle it, whatever. But when she was 14 or 15, she wanted to go cooking and go chefing. So she actually got an apprenticeship, left school at 16, like her other daughter did. Left school at 16, straight into an apprenticeship with Rick Stein. At 18, she was second in command. They'd moved her from Cornwall up to Winchester, working away, doing really well. Working 80 to 100 hours a week. We all think we work too darn hard, really, but the food industry is very much the same, or it can be. So she was up there working really hard, doing really well, working in the kitchen. She's the only English speaker in the kitchen, working with all the rest were Romanian men. And we're like, "How do you communicate?" She said, "Throw a saucepan or 2, they still understand." So I don't know where she gets it from, but so where have we gone to? We've diversified. 2012, we put up the wind turbine. So this is again going back to Mike's talk and valuing your time, okay? So we have one chance at rearing our children and spending our time with those, and quality time with our children. So due to various reasons, we actually were milking once a day, but the biggest reason was actually to spend time with our kids and to make that work. So we milked for probably nearly 10 years once a day. That gave me some quality time to think, look, and see where else we could invest some money. At the time, the feed-in tariffs came in and we found the sweet spot, and it was nothing more than time allowed us to do that, okay? Turbine's equivalent to another 500 cow herd. We made the decision after the wealth creation, actually, that a second herd, multiple herds, wasn't what we wanted to do, okay? We wanted one herd, do it as best we could, and then if throwing off cash, we could do that. The turbine, the banks, we were very early adopters, like it's been mentioned before. That early adopter, we went to the bank, they're like, but it might not work. Your cows have got to pay for it. Every penny of that turbine was paid for by our cows because they were a profitable business, okay? Different now. Times have moved on. So anyway, so going back to Rebecca, so she's up there working 80 to 100 hours a week. We were about a mile outside from our local village. It's about 5,000 people and about 6 miles in from the coast. So a local chip shop in the village, been a chip shop for 70 years, had been on the market for about 4 years at a pretty expensive price. And then all of a sudden, it was on Facebook one day, and I was scrolling through, and it's like, oh, they must want to sell now. And they dropped the price by 25%. We're like, okay, they obviously want to sell now. And I literally just took a screenshot, and I sent to Rebecca, who was up in Winchester, thoughts. So she's on the phone, right, okay. Right, you keen? Yep, okay, right. You speak to the agent. You come in, you do the deal. So we're trying to hand on some responsibility to the next generation. So the next thing you know, we've got the particulars there. Yeah, okay, right. Let's go. We haven't got to go far out of the way. We can go and have a look at this. We've got the figures on it. And again, we're looking at very high returns. It's cash business. Okay, we've got to go back to our grass-based systems, okay? It's simplicity of systems, okay? The fish and chip business actually fits the same model. It's simple, repeatable. And so we were like, okay. And while the money was there, we said, right, Rebecca, you don't really want to come forward, but actually, how can we help now that next generation go? Look at succession planning, whatever. Emily, our youngest, was like, no, you get on with it if it works. So what did we do? We actually go back to Claire, let's do the numbers. Run the numbers on it, and if the numbers add up, let's give it a go. So we did the numbers, we're like, yeah, this is too good to be true, really, but we'll see. So we actually ended up buying that 5 years ago.
Yeah.
5 years ago. And COVID hit, slowed up, whatever. We were only shut for a few weeks, actually. And actually, COVID was really good to us. Yes, the restaurant couldn't open. It's a 77-seater restaurant now. The other side of the screen, that's the takeaway. And I just call it, it's like a 10-unit parlor pit. But that's the money pit, okay? They come in, the money we can earn from that small square footage is just like a parlor pit. So, and where else has it led to? Every calf has a value with Orla. What are our Jersey bulls worth? An awful lot of money if you sell them as burgers. Okay, so yeah, there's a picture of us and the girls, and Claire will tell you a bit about it.
So basically, we've always been looking to the next generation. Emily, she's very much a bookworm. She's very quiet in comparison to her sister. They're the opposites. She left school at 16 and got an accountancy apprenticeship, and she's the only person that the company has ever taken on at 16. She did her work experience there for a week, and the head accountant from the agriculture department, we didn't realise this until last year, stood up and fought for her to come into the team. So she's been there since she's 16, she's now 22. She's done all of her AAT, and she's now doing her chartered. Her knowledge of any bookkeeping, anything, she surpassed me years ago. But what we've agreed is she won't take on the family books until she's finished her chartered accountancy. So she's been working since 16. She is now at the same stage as people she was at school with. They've come back from university with debt and no experience, and they're doing exactly the same course as she is, having earned her whole way through, got all the experience and lots of relevant qualifications behind her. So she will eventually take over the account side of both businesses. I do them for both businesses. Bex is highly dyslexic. She's very much like her dad, has a new idea every 5 minutes. I married one, I gave birth to one. So that is, yeah. So I'm trying to rein these two in the whole time, but if the figures don't work, we don't do it. So as a family, we've always made time to go to the sports matches, to go to the clubs, to take them to clubs. It wasn't just me, we both did it. So whether it was trampolining, or watching netball, which is 2-stop start for Andrew, or watching rounders, one or both of us would always try and go unless we were away, unless there was a disaster. The girls, when we were a lot younger, we were 13 times a week milking. We were doing 90% of the milking. The girls knew that on a Sunday, if it was nice weather, if they packed the car and got a packed lunch ready, as soon as we were in for milking, we're heading to the beach. And it was nothing for them, you know. So Bex has always liked cooking. So at the age of 8, she knew that if she got pizzas into the oven made completely from scratch, she knew what time I was coming in, roughly, and she would put them in because she wasn't allowed to take them out because she might burn herself with a hot tray. So one day we came in and she decided to quadruple the recipe. The recipe was for 4 already, so we had pizza for a week. So we have actually done our succession planning already. The girls we are now in control of the business through a trust, but they actually own more of the business than we do. All the paperwork's in place. We've got exit strategies. We've got shareholders agreements. We've got the whole works. We hope just about every situation is counted for. So we know that if we want to spend anything more than 100,000 in the business for anything, we have to have a board meeting and discuss it with them. Often we'll end up with an impromptu board meeting because one of the girls or Andrew will suggest something and then it just disappears into the ether from there. But we do have structured board meetings. We've always been on holiday as a family. Holidays are cheaper than divorces. Doing what you need to do as a family are cheaper than divorces, especially for farms involved. So Andrew knew that, so when we first got together, holidays were non-negotiable. We didn't get together until I was older, so I had more experience in life. And I think that's been a huge advantage to us as our partnership. Yes, we've had the tough times. Yes, we still argue. You know, don't think it's all sweetness and light.
Okay, quick challenge to you then. Just leave here. Okay, so by us working together, okay, we can probably bring those into a circle and we can hit the bullseye because we catch all those things. But just a quick challenge. Go home from here today and actually, what is your reason for being? Okay, just a quick question on it. I'll flip on because it's quickly, we're running out of time. And just a little bit of something different for you to think about. You know, you've all heard of IQ. Okay, can I have a quick show of hands for EQ? Okay, so a very small minority. Okay, so that's your emotional quotient. How you manage emotional situations, how do you work with people, how you work together, and everything else. Okay, and then there's another couple down the bottom there of social quotient. Okay, that is how, and I would suggest that everyone in this room has a higher and above average social quotient because you're here today. Okay, it's how you build relationships, how you build networks. Okay. And what's been proven in some research is that the EQ and SQ, if you've got two of them higher in high levels, you're very likely to be employing the person who's got a high IQ, and you'll be more successful going forward. Then there's the fourth one of adversity. Okay, the adversity quotient. That's how you handle a bad situation, and I think that little square sort of sums us up pretty well. We try and work together. We build a bigger square, but we always keep little bits and pieces sticking out or opening or entrances for people to help or build our network and build our wealth, our success going forward. Okay, so it's just another couple little points.
So while we were doing the wealth creation course, the 5 love languages was suggested to us, and we both laughed a little bit. I thought, yeah, well, we're all right most of the time. Well, sometimes we're not. And the more we thought about it, we thought, actually, there's quite a bit of time that we're actually fractious at each other and just a bit rubbish. So that's the 5 love languages. So when you first get together and you're going out, everything's wonderful and everything's lovey-dovey and all, you know, and then that sort of fades, and then you get into your routine, and whether you still love them or not, and then some people will divorce quite quickly because it's not as they thought it was. So have a look at this. I would suggest this book for everybody to read. So that they put it into 5 sections. You like to have gifts and tokens of affection. Now, that's not my love language. So when we first got married, I was bought a pair of wellies and some waterproof trousers for Christmas. Now, I wasn't too impressed with that, but actually overall I wasn't that cross either, because I don't do presents, I don't do dates, I never remember birthdays, I never remember our wedding anniversary. Presents aren't important to me, so we decided very early on that we weren't going to do Valentine's Day, whatever, we weren't going to do any presents, because it didn't bother us. So instead, we would just go out for a meal at some point or do something else. Then you've got quality time together. Now that's really important to me. That's one of my main ones. I like to have quality time, but I don't want to be so, and each one of these, they say there's a different dialect, but it's worth reading the book. So for me, quality time is Andrew deciding that we're going to go somewhere and where we're going, and I don't have to make any decisions because I do that all the time. So then the other one is physical touch. Well, nearly all men think physical touch is their number one for obvious reasons. But physical touch is one that, you know, it can be as much as just doing this and that's somebody feeling loved. Then there's words of affirmation, saying, you know, you look lovely today, you look, again, that's not mine. Acts of service is definitely mine. If you do something for me that I'm not expecting, that makes me feel good. So you need to read it to see what's right for you, but I would absolutely, because after reading that book and talking about it, our marriage has improved. And also when things are really, they still get really bad, don't, you know. I'm not trying to say everything's lovely, fluffy and bunnies and everything else, but we come back to that and we go, we haven't done such and such for a long time.
Last slide. I'll take up and continue Trevor's analogy of horses, okay? So, listening to Matthew yesterday again, I'm like, man, yeah, he's just a lot like I used to be when I was in my 20s and early 30s. It's okay. It's the fiery colt that's going like hell, pulling the plough as fast as he can and going as hard as he can, okay? Yeah, obviously with an eye for the younger fillies or whatever, but actually finding a slightly older mare to stand beside me, pull the plough with me. We can actually plough straighter, plough deeper, plough wider, and get to our success far quicker than we could without each other. And as somebody mentioned this before, a good, strong partnership, working together, you get the hybrid vigor just like you do with a Jersey and a Holstein cow. So I'll sum up. We went to Brazil, luckily, like we do, build a good, strong network. Through Nuffield, I managed to be a member of the Global Dairy Farmers and did a study tour to Brazil and Argentina, okay? These little fellas were everywhere on this little farm. They're burrowing arrows, okay? And I thought, well, actually, they sum us up pretty well, okay? Somebody's up on as high as they can, looking for opportunities, looking for threats all the time, okay? And then but above all else, we protect our home, our family, above everything else. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Claire and Andrew. There's so much there to talk about, but actually, as I mentioned, their herdsman, Ant, is here with them, and his wife, Amanda. And Ant, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot there, Ant, from your experience for the last 3 years working with Claire and Andrew, for you, what about the relationship makes their business so strong? Sorry, Mike here, please.
Thank you very much, Mella.
Yeah.
Their relationship, from when you first meet them, as you can see from being up there, their relationship through the years has been amazingly strong through thick and thin, like probably a lot of people in this room in the farming community. The one thing that sums them up is the two signs either side of them. They are positive farmers. Once you latch on to that positivity, you are just on the race circuit going forwards. They carry you. And in return, we hope we carry them as a team. The one thing they are not frightened of is exploring the boundaries of farming, which is something we're all going to have to do in the future and what this conference has been about. So hopefully, going forward, we can be part of their future as well, which gives us a future for ourselves. So I hope that answers your question.
Well, they possibly take strength from each other, which makes them stronger together.
I think that they very much, it's like the positive and negative of a battery. You need both of them there to have the power that comes out. So without each other, there would be none of that.
Thank you, Anthony. And actually, just Anthony's wife, Amanda, is with him as well. And it just so turns out that Amanda is a milk recording technician. Now, if anything brings out the stress levels in a relationship, it's actually doing a milk recording, in my humble experience of it anyway. And what are your observations on that, Amanda, from going around Cornwall doing all this milk recording?
Well, a bit sad you've said I'm a milk recorder, because that means every farmer in here has got, because it's the worst day of the month.
Yeah.
Milk recording in Cornwall's very, very different than the big black and white cows that I'm used to up in Cheshire, but I like playing on the farm. I like cows.
But how do you see the relationship working in the milking pit when milk recording is going on between couples?
There's not many couples together in a parlour.
That says it all, doesn't it, really?
It's usually...
That says it all.
And if there is a couple in the parlour, I have, I think, 2 farms, there's usually a lot of shouting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of angry words. Some of them I'm not going to repeat.
Sounds familiar.
But there's not many couples together in the milking parlour.
Enough said. Thank you very much, Amanda. Thank you. Andrew, you know, my observation is you have worked with your mother in business, you've worked with your wife currently in the business, and now your 2 daughters are coming into the business with you as well. In your opinion, what has the female perspective brought to your businesses down to the years and going forward?
It's difficult because I don't really know anything else. I know I've got 2 bold spots from the look, from the look I get from people from having working with females all the time. It's you learn. You know, they bring positivity, but everybody's different characters. It's not necessarily being working with females. Okay, it's different views and different strengths and different weaknesses as well.
Thank you. We have a question down the back here, Paddy.
Yeah, great presentation. Both speakers. It's lovely to hear the Brewer story. If I could just comment, I suppose it's been my honour and privilege to facilitate the group that Marion did the study on. And I'd just like to credit Lanier Ryan, who really, I suppose, is the reason that group was set up. And if I could just make Lanier's observation, I think she'd say here is Lanier was, many will know her, she's a consultant in New Zealand, involved in the wealth creation courses and run a lot of different courses for farmers and farm families. And basically Lanier's observation was that she was seeing amazing women in both Ireland and the UK doing amazing work, but not seeing that work being appreciated properly at farm and industry level, and probably actually saddest of all was not seeing the women appreciate the positive role they were having themselves. So she was seeing amazing women doing amazing work and they didn't even appreciate, they would downplay their role, say, I just fill a gap. And they might do all the finances of the business, all the payroll, played really, really important. So as an industry, I think we're very poor at acknowledging that value, and I think it's something we really need to address. And it's been a real privilege for me to work with 2 ladies groups. So what supports would the panel like to see in place to help us acknowledge and appreciate that more, and maybe help support women themselves in those roles?
Thanks, Claire. Look, I suppose it's a hard one for me to answer. I can only go, Paddy, on what we've seen coming through the transcripts, and again, it's only a very initial look at them. And from what I can remember, there wasn't one particular support that was needed, because you would have seen through the presentation, there was a diversity of backgrounds, and a diversity of interests, and a diversity of range of knowledge and interest in the different farming tasks. So there were certain cohorts that wanted, specifically women-only discussion groups. There was ones that some people wanted a broader range, some people wanted more focus on the technical side of things. I think there needs to be a much wider conversation with a wider group of people, because it's not just farm or women farm partners coming in. There's other partners and other people that need to be involved in those discussions, and to develop, I suppose, the different supports that are needed.
I think we've started the process because there are small groups, but the problem is a lot of the ladies that come into agriculture have had no idea of the upbringing and what is expected and the in-law situation. I was very fortunate with my mother-in-law overall. We had our differences. I nearly left because one day when we were away for a couple of days, she decided that I needed a room in the house decorated. And to her, she was trying to help because it did desperately need doing. But I was so angry, I nearly left over that. Now, it was very early days, but I think as a farming group, we need to make sure that these ladies or gents coming into the family, you are communicating, you set boundaries before it starts, because if you don't set those boundaries, there's no rules, and it's too late to set rules when you're 2 or 3 years down the line and you start upsetting everybody. So there's a huge education needed. And you young men in the room, you need to remember that things are changing and changing fast. These ladies will expect holidays. They will expect you to change nappies. They will expect you to do all the things that you've probably never seen your fathers do.
I think one of the you know, observations on one of your slides, Marion, was about that their names were on the loans but not on the land ownership. And I think for me that's a major part of it, is land ownership. I think in Ireland only 13% of women are actually herd owner numbers in this country, you know, and so that's a significant part. We have a question there, please.
Thank you guys for the fantastic talk. My question to you is, as myself being a business partner, how long did it take you for not only the family that you've bought into, for the people around and the other business around to recognise you as an equal within that business and not going, as I always see, oh, is your partner back? Is that about? Because for me, as a young person coming through, as the business side of it, I want to know how long has it taken you to be recognised as the business owner? Because you said about the checkbook.
Yeah, so,
how long has it taken?
So I was very fortunate. My mother-in-law hated doing paperwork. So when we were going out, even before we were engaged, I used to do all of the accounts for her except signing the cheque. When we came back from honeymoon, she basically threw it, literally, it's all yours now. We got it sorted and I bought into the business. Now, due to tax situations, I couldn't be an equal partner in some of the land holdings for a while, especially not until the estate was sorted, and that took about 12 years. But as a family, Andrew, his mum and myself, we had very open and honest discussions, and I was treated immediately as that. Well, now my sister had a very different experience, and when I was working in the bank, I've seen all sorts of experiences. And a lot of the older generation do not want to give up any responsibility because they were 60 before they got their hands on the checkbook themselves. And it's about education. My true belief is, if you haven't got control of the checkbook by the time you're 30, the farm will, and the business and your own relationships will suffer. But then I was 29 when we got married. But you know what I mean? If the next generation hasn't got a big say in the control of the checkbook, you know, things are going to be difficult going forward. What would you?
I would say it was less than 12 months that the reps knew.
Exactly.
Yeah. But you see, I had grown to be quite a strong personality at that point. I wasn't 18 getting married like most of my friends. I wasn't 18 moving in to somebody's house. So I see that because I had more of an overview of life, I knew what I wanted more as well and what I wasn't going to accept. So I think I wasn't that timid little girl anymore. I was a fully fledged adult, and I think that is to my benefit. I moved into the house with Andrew and his mum after we got engaged because I moved from Devon down to Cornwall, and then we got married and she still lived with us for 3 months because when she was moving into the house wasn't ready because the builders and everything else. But that was the first time in her life that she'd been able to put her own stamp on a property when she was moving into her own house, because she'd always lived with her in-laws and her brother-in-law. So she never had the opportunity to have free reign. So when I moved in, I could quite see why she wanted to decorate that room a particular colour, because it's what she'd always dreamed of and had never been able to do.
I'm just wondering, is it the chicken or the egg? Had you a good relationship starting off and that's why your business worked? Or working together, did that strengthen your relationship?
I think we had a very good relationship to start with.
You always have.
And we always have. The working together, especially in early days, was hard because it was Andrew's farm, it was his passion, it was his life. I'm not passionate about farming. I do love farming, but it's not my passion. And so we did have a few up and downers, But you've got to do that to have the lay of the land. But the first time we had an argument was about 12 months of what I call a full argument, rather than just something that you could discuss, was when about 12 months after we got married, and we were hanging pictures in the sitting room. And we had an absolute dinger. And that was the first time we'd had a real argument, like a proper...
Gloves off one.
So it's sometimes the small things.
And just an observation, I suppose, more than anything else, I think if there's nothing else you take away from this talk this evening, make an appointment with your solicitor to finalise or make some start at your will before the start of calving. Okay, if you do nothing else before the end of, because that brought a lot of stress, an awful lot, and brought you back a long way.
Yeah, so basically, it cost us over 250,000 in legal fees alone, and then we still had to pay out. So it's no mean feat. It took us 12 years to finalise. It caused me mental health issues. I've had depression 4 or 5 times, and sometimes very badly, and we've got through that. Don't underestimate what can happen. It's always worse when something happens indoors than outside. You can lose cows, you can have a terrible time, but as soon as it comes in the house, that's when it really hurts.
Okay, have you any more questions? Yeah, question here at the front, please. And do you still have many differences of opinion? That's what we call them at home. Just
Not as many as we used to, by a long way.
yeah, okay.
Thanks for a brilliant presentation, and I think the one thing I'd say is more a comment than anything else, but we come here every year to the Positive Farmers to see what opportunities present themselves, and I think that this is a glaring opportunity. We're if you look around at successful couples, and just look around, and you can see what can be done when 2 people are working together. It's just a glaring 50% of an increase in the value of, and that multiplies year on year. I think it's a glaring opportunity.
Absolutely. For me, a successful farming business is such a massive equation. There's no way that any one person can have all those skills. And you absolutely need such a range of skills that, and your partner that's with you, you probably don't even realise all the skills they have to bring to the table. But at the Dairy Women Ireland launch in November, we had a lady speak to us from Cork, and she was so open and so honest. And she said that, she felt, and her husband admitted, he didn't want to share, because for some of the reasons, it was so long before he got the family business himself, and it was so long before he got in charge, that he was slow to share it out with his partner. But it's a massive resource. If you're prepared to share your business and to push the boundaries with your partner, there's a synergy, there's a hybrid vigour there that will help your business explode.
There's just one other thing is that we're saying that to all the young guys here to pay attention to this, but I think for the girls here, you don't underestimate yourself, and don't underestimate your value.
You're here.
I also, don't underestimate the skills that your partners may bring in. The fact that they've worked for somebody other than family is huge. I think working for family is very different. I rocked up to Ennisbarton one evening after I'd finished work, and there was this huge slanging match going across the yard, and screaming and shouting, and I'd never seen that before. But because they were family working together, you can do that. But when you employ people, you can't do that the same. You can't expect people that you employ to work the hours that you work for the remuneration you get. You have to realise, and you can learn a lot from other people who work for a big organisation, another company, and how things go and how you should structure holidays in and things like that. We're not the best employers. We try our best. You know, we have our moments. We're not perfect, but we hope. Well, we've had staff that have lasted, you know, been with us for years, and that all of our staff are part of our family. And, you know, treat people how you would like to be treated.
Absolutely. I think we could have a full 2-day conference on this topic alone, but unfortunately, I think we're going to have to draw it close unless there's any more questions from the floor. Look, I just want to say a massive thank you to Marion, to Claire, to Andrew, to Ant and Amanda as well for their contribution. Thank you so much.
Well done.